Every type in the socio has 8 blocks. Model A maps 4 of them. For decades, that was enough. It isn't anymore. This is Model L, and this is where the socio gets completed. Model A gives the LII 4 blocks: laws paired with ideas, relations paired with force, emotions paired with senses, pragmatics paired with telos. Now look at the LSI. Laws paired with force. That is a real pairing. It defines a type. It clearly exists. So where does laws paired with force appear in the LII? Model A has no answer. It isn't there, but it should be. Consider the LII. Force sits at the vulnerable position. One-dimensional, the weakest point in the entire type. Laws sits at the leading position. 4-dimensional, the strongest. Someone might reasonably ask, why not block laws with force vertically? Surely pairing force with a 4-dimensional function would strengthen it considerably. The answer is that if force were blocked with laws, it would not be that weak. The one-dimensional weakness of force in the LII is explained precisely by what it is actually blocked with: relations. A 2-dimensional function, a weak partner produces a weak block, but this reveals something deeper. In the LII, force is blocked with an ethics aspect, or in the LSI, force is blocked with a logic aspect. The element is operating from a different mode entirely. Different character, different behavior, different dimensionality. Force paired with ethics is not the same element as force paired with logic. They never were. Model L formalizes that distinction. Not 8 elements with different partners. 16 distinct monadic elements, each defined by what it actually blocks with. Every information aspect has 2 forms. For the 4 judgment aspects, laws, pragmatics, relations, and emotions, the 2 forms are concrete and abstract. The concrete form is always external, embodied, grounded in physical reality, tied directly to lived experience. The abstract form is always internal, conceptual, operating in general frameworks and inner architecture. For the 4 perception aspects, senses, force, telos, and ideas, the 2 forms are objective and subjective. The objective form is always detached, controlled, precise, engaging from outside. The subjective form is always involved, felt, personally charged, living inside the experience. 2 splitting principles, 8 aspects, 16 distinct elements, and each one has a name. What classical socionics called senses, Model L, calls sensation. The information metabolism element of bodily experience and the physical world. It appears in 2 forms. The first is observation, external sensation. A controlled, selective intake of sensory data from the world around you. Attention directed outward, focused on functional details, precise and purposeful. This is the information metabolism element of the SLI. The second is stimulation, involved sensation, the subjective experience of incoming bodily stimuli and physical vitality from within. Sensation felt from the inside, charged with somatic feeling. This is the information metabolism element of the SEI. One engages the world as an external observer. The other lives inside the bodily experience itself. What classical socionics called force, Model L, calls drive. The information metabolism element of will, exertion, and physical power. It appears in 2 forms. The first is actuation, external drive. The regulatory leveraging of force to control and shape the physical environment, bringing it into conformity with precise parameters. This is the information metabolism element of the SLE. The second is impetus. Involved drive, the generation of viscerally felt somatic impulses that convert vital reserves into powerful exertion toward specific concrete aims. This is the information metabolism element of the SEE. One controls the environment from outside. The other generates force from deep within. What classical socionics called telos, Model L, calls insight. The information metabolism element of foresight, pattern, and the unfolding of time. It appears in 2 forms. The first is apprehension. detached insight, a non-verbal awareness of how situations and trends develop over time, insight into events in terms of their strategic implications and how they are likely to play out, seen from outside with calm analytical distance. This is the information metabolism element of the ILI. The second is Reverie, internal insight, fantasizing scenarios and aspirational daydreaming, inner reflection on the flow of events in terms of narrative significance, subtext, and meaning, experienced from within. This is the information metabolism element of the IEI. One reads the future from outside, the other lives inside it. What classical socionics called ideas, model L, calls imagination. The information metabolism element of possibility, conceptual exploration, and creative potential. It appears in two forms. The first is ideation, detached imagination. The active generation and creative manipulation of concepts, brainstorming, exploring semantic possibilities, building conceptual architecture from outside the material. Imagination, deployed as a precision instrument. This is the information metabolism element of the ILE. The second is inspiration, internal imagination, an inner sense of potentiality and spontaneous creative impulse, drawing on experience to imagine novel possibilities, activities, and opportunities, felt from within as personally alive and charged with meaning. This is the information metabolism element of the IEE. One generates concepts from outside them. The other lives inside the sense of possibility itself. What classical socionics called laws, model L, calls structure. The information metabolism element of order, logical framework, and systematic form. It appears in two forms. The first is Habitus, external structure. Embodied physical structures and codified behavioral habits. The tangible defining forms of people, groups, objects, and organized systems. Structure made concrete and lived in the body. This is the information metabolism element of the LSI. The second is intellect, detached structure. The linguistic formatting and interpretive schema of the mind, framing and articulating concepts into coherent, communicable ideas. Structure operating at the level of pure abstraction. This is the information metabolism element of the LII. One embodies structure in the physical world, the other constructs it entirely in the mind. What classical socionics called pragmatics, model L calls application. The information metabolism element of practical knowledge, method, and productive action. It appears in two forms. The first is praxis, external application, informal methodologies and practical experimentation. The flexible use of hands-on techniques and material resources to improve the workflow of the physical environment, knowledge applied directly through doing. This is the information metabolism element of the LSE. The second is reason, detached application, informal logic and the articulation of fact propositions, using available data to identify productive end goals and formulate workable strategies. Knowledge applied through analysis and argument. This is the information metabolism element of the LIE. One applies knowledge through the hands, the other applies it through the mind. What classical socionics called relations, model L calls character. The information metabolism element of personal bonds, felt evaluation, and moral orientation. It appears in two forms. The first is Animus, involved character. The totality of a person's stable, visceral attitudes of affinity and aversion toward particular individuals and concrete objects of experience. A felt sense of who and what belongs in your world, immediate, personal, and deeply embodied. This is the information metabolism element of the ESI. The second is soul, internal character, inner values and ideals. The totality of one's foundational convictions, moral inclinations, and abstract notions of what is inherently worthwhile in life. Character operating at the level of principle rather than personal attachment. This is the information metabolism element of the EII. One is felt in the body toward specific people and things. The other is held in the mind as abstract conviction. What classical socionics called emotions, model L calls emotion. The information metabolism element of feeling, atmosphere, and emotive expression. It appears in two forms. The first is affect, involved emotion, the physical conveyance of somatic feelings that mediate experience within and between people through aesthetic signals, physical presence, and atmospheric tone. The felt charge in a shared space, the mood that fills a room. This is the information metabolism element of the ESE. The second is sentiment, internal emotion, deeply felt inner opinions and passions conveyed through dramatic rhetoric and symbolic gesture, emanations of emotion that incite others to feel and act accordingly, feeling as inner conviction made public. This is the information metabolism element of the EIE. One creates atmosphere through physical presence, the other ignites feeling through passionate expression. That is the foundation of Model L, 16 distinct information metabolism elements, each one defined by what it actually blocks with, each one corresponding to exactly one type in the socio. Classical socionics gave us 8. Kimani White and Aleesha Lowry completed the picture. In the next video we go deeper. We look at how those 16 elements are distributed across the 4 capacity groups and introduce the 8 function positions that Model A has never been able to show, the other 4 blocks finally visible